Knowing this near universal pattern helps to assess new brands and existing ones.
What don't marketers know?
Quite a lot. Marketers largely live in an anything-goes world where the latest fashion or fad drives an awful lot of practice.
Segmentation is the recognition you can't serve everyone with equal satisfaction.
This is the Zach Ansbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast clip, we have Professor Jackie Eastman of Florida Gulf Coast University, United States. So we have things like special issues for the Journal of Consumer Behaviour. I know that that's currently going under a bit of a revision. So I don't know how much you want to talk about this. Maybe how do you potentially envision this looking in the future, or is it something that you're still working on?
Well, again, 2 years ago, we sort of formalized the process where here we have an application because we get people all the time like, oh, I have an idea for a special issue. And so we thought, okay, we need sort of an organized system. And so the first time we did sort of a special call for, a call for special issues, we got an overwhelming response. And so, and there were, a lot of good ideas. And so we're like, okay, we cannot put all these in 1 year. So we spread it out over 2 years and sort of said, okay, we're going to go to a biannual. Now we've had some phenomenal special issue editors. And I'm going to be, a lot of our editorial team started as a special issue editor. I mean, you've been a special issue editor. Tife's been a special issue editor. When I look down the list that Nina's done special issues, Cian's done, almost everybody on the AE list at some point in time did a special issue for us. And so for us, special issues are really useful because you get people with an expertise in a certain topic or, that could really help grow the journal. And for us, we can sort of see how they do as a special issue. But what we've sort of decided, Steve and I, strategically, is we're going to be more limiting in our special issues because sometimes it's gone to the point where it's like, okay, this paper's not up to our level. So they might go through the process and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, it's only a single study. And we tend to, the single biggest reason for a desk reject is a single study. Those are going to get, we've been desk rejecting those for some time, I think for close to 2 years now. And so then it's kind of hard for them to go, oh, well, the special issue editor was okay with it. It's like, well, no, you need another study. And I made a note, may need another study. So we're going to be a little bit more strategic in our choice of topics. And we want someone, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I want to be a special issue editor. What they don't realize is, oh, it's a lot of work. And so that, going back to that 40 hours for a paper or people go, oh, they don't have a team with expertise in that topic. They hadn't thought about reviewers. So really sort of strategically having them think up front, okay, what's going to be their process? And there's been a couple of times where Steve and I have had to take over some of the special issues because we pride ourselves on trying to get papers processed in a way that provides the level of detail, but on a timely basis. But again, the majority of people we're relying on are volunteers. And so I think just sort of making the process a little more well thought out and sort of picking what are the best topics that fit the journal.
And by the sounds of it, strong teams as well that have, shown that they've thought through what it will look like, the journey. Yeah.
And so we're, for people watching this, we've revised our special issue form and we got feedback and we're still getting feedback from our editorial team. And then the deputy editor and the editors, we're going to go through and sort of finalize the form. We'll post the form probably late spring, and then August will be the open period to complete the form, put in a request for a special issue, and then we'll be looking for special issues for the 26, 27 academic years. So be on the lookout. Probably, I'm thinking by April, May at the very latest, we'll put out the call for special issue topics for August to submit.
That sounds awesome. With the journal, I mean, do you happen to know some of the different rates for the journal, as in like acceptance rates or days under review? I know these are specific numbers. You can give rough general ideas if you'd like. I mean, with so many submissions, right? Over 2,000.
We published last year. I can give you the year-end stats.
Yeah, amazing.
We had the 2,240 submissions. We published 144 articles. So we had about a 6% acceptance rate last year. When you look historically at the journal, I would say probably the last 5 to 10 years, we've been in that 5 to 10% range for probably the last 10 years. That our review duration last year was 60 days. So when people say, how long, I think 60 days. And as an author, if you're getting into that 75, 90 days and you haven't heard anything, I have no problem if you reach out to the editor in charge and say, can you give me an update? But typically the review time is 60 days. Now it takes time to get a reviewer, because to get, right now we require 2 reviewers. We'll probably be over the next year moving towards getting 3 reviewers. But to get 3 reviewers, you're probably going to have to ask between 10 to 20 people. And for people to have to send out 20 requests is not unheard of. And so that takes some. So when people go, 60 days from the day I click submit, it takes about 10 days to get a reviewer, and then another 60 days to get the review. And then it typically takes maybe another couple days after that, because the AE processes it, then we get it, and then we process it.
There's a lot that happens, and that's one of the things I think that has been exceptionally phenomenal of joining this team, is realizing what actually happens behind the scenes of the journal, and realizing, what the editors first have to do, and then they pass it on to either regional editors or associate editors, and then the recruitment of reviewers and the time consumption there, finding, because you could approach anyone, but there's a deliberate strategy to get people who are experts in the method or people who are experts in the topic, and trying to get a combination of those skills, younger reviewers, more experienced reviewers, it's a quite difficult process to do, and it's something that you appreciate once you sort of are embedded in the journal. So hopefully these insights from Jackie here have really, if you're young or an academic, or you haven't quite understood the process, it explains why there's that 60-day period, because it's not just have it and then someone reviews it. There's many steps involved.
I think one of the things that I think we've done a nice job of with our reviewers is that, we maintain a database. So when people email us, I'm interested in a reviewer, we put them in a database. We have a regular process that the editorial team can recommend. I've worked with this ad hoc reviewer. They're great. Let's move them up to the ERB. And so we do that twice a year, every December and June. And so the idea being that you can start as an ad hoc reviewer, and if you do a good job and the AEs can depend on you, that they'll recommend you. And then you can sort of move up to the ERB, that there's that process. And also, I think we have a good combination of sort of leaders in the field, because that's the one thing that, and I mentioned this earlier with the research grants, is there's been times where I've reached out to the student of a big name, and the student, that's been out of school, a few years will turn me down. I don't have time. So then I go to the major professor who taught them, and I'm like, you're the leader in this topic, and then they'll do it. And then also I think early scholars, because, you remember when you were in your doctoral program, that's when you're up on all the methods. You're up on the latest research in a broad range of areas. As you progress in your career, you tend to get into, this is my area. But early scholars tend to be more broad in their expertise. So it's good to have a combination of early researchers and, I guess more mature researchers. I don't want to say old, because they each bring different expertise and different understanding of the field.
Absolutely. So we've spoken a lot about the journal already. Where do you kind of see the journal in 5 years? If you were to say, what do you think journal consumer behavior would look like in 2030? I think we've spoken a little bit about it, sort of multi-studies, potentially multi-methods, still that broad church approach is.
I think so, because I think that helps us stand out. That I think there's a lot of niche journals out there, but there's not a lot of broader journals out there. And, when you look at how do you improve the impact factor, when you appeal to a broader audience, that's going to help your impact factor. And that's going to attract more papers. And so I think as we're upping the quality and working to, up the quality with reviews, we've done, we do usually at least once a year do some kind of reviewer training session. And that helps us with recruiting reviewers too. That I sort of, we've had sort of a steady progress. And, we became an A. I feel like we've really earned our A and moving it, onward and upward.
Yeah. Would you see a vision where it becomes an A star?
I would love to see that happen. That I think step one is get that impact factor. We've had an improvement in impact factor, continue to improve that impact factor. And I think that's sort of the necessary step. I think Angie's done a phenomenal job with our social media, that I think we have a really strong social media presence, as opposed to just Jackie or Steve posting something.
Yeah, I think Angie's done a wonderful job. All of those posts on LinkedIn, they tag the right people to improve the impressions. They're visually stunning. She's very good at summarizing the articles for people, because obviously she's a researcher herself, a PhD scholar. Angie is absolutely wonderful. Hi everyone, Zach here again, and just a few quick reminders before you go. If you're listening to the podcast and are considering incorporating it into your secondary school or university courses, then please let me know and I can guide you through the process. If you're enjoying the show and getting some insights from it, then please leave me a 5-star review on your podcast listening platform. It would go a long way to spreading the word. If you know someone who would benefit from this content, then I would be thrilled if you could consider sharing this episode and its knowledge with them. And finally, thank you for becoming part of the community for this show.